Hello Malaysians, my name is Professor Dr. Muhammad Tajuddin, and in today's video I would like to make some comments on the topic of Muhyiddin being charged with the Sedition Act. Is PH being unfair? Now, the situation that have arisen in recent days was because of Tan Sri Muhyiddin, was the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, has been charged with the Sedition Act for, in one sense, what I understand as insinuating that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong was not acting professionally or honestly or with the best interest of the nation in disregarding his bid to become Prime Minister when he presented his so-called 115 SDs. Now, I would like first of all to give my own understanding of the situation, because when 2022 election ended, we were all glued to the television and we were waiting or was waiting for any kind of news with regard to the new government. So the next is I will respond to the critique of the opposition, who are saying that again Anwar has backtracked on his word, being a hypocrite, not eliminating the Sedition Act or using the Sedition Act on political opponents as such. Then I will also respond to the civil society who also make mention, like the opposition party, that Anwar has backtracked, Anwar has used the Sedition Act, and this is something which PH has promised in their manifesto and such. So I will explain or make comments on all those three aspects. Number one, I will explain my own personal understanding of the situation. Now, when Tan Sri Muhyiddin gave the speech during the Nenggiri election, he said that he had 115 SDs or statutory declaration, and he presented it to the palace. But unfortunately, for somehow, the palace did not call him, but called Anwar to be Prime Minister. Now, of course, this is a lot of creative presentation by Tan Sri Muhyiddin. Every one of us had understood or were there in the sense of following the events that had happened. What I understand from the situation was that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong did not or would not accept the 115 SDs, most probably, I assume, because he is an intelligent person, unlike Muhyiddin perhaps. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong understood that 115 SDs comprising of turncoats of Barisan Nasional, of which there was 10 of them, would not fly in terms of the anti-hopping law, which had just been enforced. So any kind of formation of government must be mandated to the head of the political party. And it is true that GPS had agreed to work with Perikatan Nasional, and perhaps also I'm not sure about GRS, but I think definitely GPS and some of these members from UMNO and also MCA, I think. And so the Agong did not accept that. So what he offered to Muhyiddin was, look, why don't you form a unity government with Anwar Ibrahim? He asked Muhyiddin that question. I know, because many times it has been said very clearly by him, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, that the offer was for him to form the government. And he, Muhyiddin, flat out rejected the idea. He said no, without much thought, without consultation with anybody, as I understand it, but arrogantly said no, and that's it. So the Yang di-Pertuan Agong also, I assume, viewed that 115 would be very, very fragile. Like the first time Muhyiddin became Prime Minister under the same Agong, very, very fragile, of which even then Muhyiddin was never able to prove in Parliament because he wouldn't take the no confidence vote. And so the Yang di-Pertuan Agong then, as I understood it, called out GPS, called out Barisan Nasional under Zahid Hamidi, and called out GRS and asked them if they would form the government with Anwar Ibrahim's PH. As I understood it, Pakatan Harapan had nowhere to go. They couldn't negotiate with their enemies because they were basically enemies with GRS, with GPS, with UMNO and Barisan Nasional. But the Agong did something which I admired or respected until today, and was very happy to have a monarch of this intelligence and also of this innovative mind. So it was an historical occasion when Anwar Ibrahim was sworn in as Prime Minister under what was termed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong as the unity government, although political scientists term it as a mixed government, not a unity government. And so that was what I understood. This is the process. But the way Muhyiddin had explained in Nenggiri, it was as if the Agong wasn't really acting whether intelligently or with great honesty or whatever, just decide to call somebody else, even though he said he had 150. Yang tak laku, I call it. Yang useless for me because of the anti-hopping law. Now, for me also, for Muhyiddin to say something like that was really something that is very, very insulting. Because when he became the Prime Minister under the same Sultan Abdullah, even we do not know how many voted or how many people actually voted for him. It was at the discretion of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong called all the MPs, and I think only he had the numbers. And he was, I think, he should have, whether he was asked to, also prove his backing by having a no confidence vote, which he did not, until the day that the budget was passed by a mere, I don't know, 1 or 2 votes, and they had to, pray to God and say, oh, thank you very much for that. I mean, that was the most frail aspect of the government that we had. And Muhyiddin also should have been thankful to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong for helping him to declare an emergency that was never an emergency in the first place. When the first time he wanted to declare an emergency, Sultan Abdullah rejected it. Then they tried a second time, this time bringing in all the civil servant, heads of civil servant who were only just people who are just, to me, unprofessional, and also kaki bodek of whoever is in power. So I understood why Sultan Abdullah had to agree to the emergency, even though I disagreed that we had an emergency. But then Sultan Abdullah mentioned it must be tabled to Parliament for debate. I still remember that there was even a letter from the Yang di-Pertuan Agong emphasizing the importance of the debate in answering, I think, Taqiyuddin or something. And that situation was never done by Muhyiddin until they had rescinded the emergency law after it was in effect for many months. And again, it shows there was no emergency in the first place. And so the emergency was annulled in the sense that it was just considered like it never happened. So for me, it's a very shameful act, and for Muhyiddin to imply and insinuate that the Sultan is not really someone who favors him or not acting professionally, I think it's a bit of a stretch, or a lot of a stretch in that regard. So I think that was the perception that I got from the whole affair. Now, the next part I would like to answer the opposition, as well as I think we do not need to wait for the the third part, with this also the civil society members by Malaysian who keep shouting that Anwar and PH are being hypocrites, that they have used the Sedition Act against Muhyiddin, when in fact they were campaigning against the Sedition Act. Well, first of all, Anwar and PH never won the election. In case anybody have forgotten, they only had what, 82 seats. They did not win, and they couldn't even form the government because they had no friends. The only reason why Anwar became PM was the Agong had helped the other parties for the interest of the nation, not for the interest of Anwar Ibrahim, but for the interest of the nation, to form a solid government that can move forward, not a frail government that is up for a 20 million ringgit grab of power. 20 million meaning to buy one MP is something like 20 million ringgit, as far as I understand it. And so that is the situation. PH did not win. So whatever manifesto that PH had cannot be done unless the other parties who were once enemies of PH agrees to it. So I don't understand which part of history that civil society members as well as the opposition member does not understand. Anwar did not win. PH did not win. Very clearly. That's the first thing. I mean, if we cannot see it in that manner, then I don't understand why people are saying because you are Prime Minister, you can change things from black to white by snapping your fingers. This is not the Mahathir era. Rafidah can talk all she wants about should do this, should do that. Hey, that is during the Mahathir era where Mahathir controlled everything. Mahathir was the one who made all these institutions the way that he wanted it. And he promoted the culture of he being the all-powerful one. He had all the strength. But unlike now, Anwar Ibrahim is head of a mixed government, or a mixed political party. So that is something that does not make the idea of promoting or putting up all the things that was said. It's not that he relegated on promises. It's just that you need to have all those other parties to agree to also. And so this is something that should be dispelled with. It is not the intention of Anwar to find fault with Tan Sri Muhyiddin. That's number one. Number two, it was Muhyiddin who put it upon himself to insinuate such a thing against Sultan Abdullah. Nobody asked him to talk like that, but he's the one who did it in order to gain sympathy from the Malays. So his statement then made such a effect on the Crown Prince of Pahang, to the point that the palace had made the report to the police. So it's not Anwar's people who made the report, it was the palace. Which part of this does the opposition and the civil society members don't understand? It's the palace who made it. Now, if you were the police and you receive a report from Professor Tajuddin and the palace, which do you think they would really pay attention to? It's not to say that the police are unprofessional, it's just that they are human. They would definitely put the palace report as very important level. And Prof. Tajuddin may be just slightly important. And so, because the law of the land has not changed, the Sedition Act, and therefore it has been framed within that, and it is the AG's position to actually prosecute. And that's what happened. So the law was still in place. Why didn't the opposition, why didn't the Perikatan Nasional change it when they were in power? They didn't change it. Why? Because most of the players like UMNO and Bersatu, who were also mostly UMNO, were all very comfortable with the ISA or the Sedition Act. They were very comfortable. They lived for 60 years with the Sedition Act. So there's no good points on their side to initiate its change. So that's the situation, and I don't think it's too difficult to understand that particular aspect of the Sedition Act. That, as I said, that number one, that Anwar did not win the election, therefore he has no power to change it for the moment, and that the report was done by the palace, and this is something that cannot be ignored, and because the law is still in existence, and so he was charged with this. And then this is the situation that if Anwar were to change this, then it will take time, and perhaps in GE16, if he can get a fresh mandate from political parties that are not used to the idea of the Sedition Act, then maybe things will change. At the moment, I am not sure whether that will happen. Now, thirdly, if in a sense they say, well, you know, Anwar could have stopped it, well, then if you're going to say that, well, that would be interference with the police actions. Of course, many people think that the executive, like the Prime Minister, controls the police because of the Tun Mahathir's time. But I think in this situation, Anwar is trying to say that, well, you know, this is the matter of the police. It's the same thing like the unfortunate lady who fell into the sinkhole. Is it Anwar's fault again? It has to be seen to be either an act of God or something about the DBKL, whether they have not been investigating and looking at some of the telltale signs that there may be problems with the street in terms of sinkhole, some deformity in the pavement, some lampposts that are leaning. That has to be laid to the DBKL. Why must it be laid to Anwar Ibrahim? There is the DBKL, there is the mayor, there is the minister. All of those can be seen to be responsible for that situation. So that is the situation at the moment, and I do not think that it is fair for many people to blame the Sedition Act on Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin by saying that Anwar and Pakatan Harapan was being unfair, was relegating on their promise, and that they are trying to silence the their political opponent, like what Tun Mahathir had done with all the Operasi Lalang and what happened in the past. This is the present. The present is different than the past. Some people say, no, it's not. Well, it is. We have the social media going wild. We have people just claiming this and claiming that. I mean, so many things have happened that merits some kind of a control, whether it is the Sedition Act or a new law to curb social media or even communication in the sense of speaking. We are at a very tense and a very critical stage for me, in my opinion, with regard to what's happening in this country. So I hope that clarifies some of the situation with Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. Remember, he said it, so he has to deal with it. Thank you.